you know, it was a typical day. It was a Tuesday morning, and Megan and Pete were out going to lunch, and the police scanner blew up about 11:33 with a domestic disturbance. That was a woman who had been shot, and we learned later in the face. But there was no indication of a school shooting at that point. It took another, I don't know, 30 minutes before we started getting the idea the shooter was on campus. And Pete got word at noon. This Pete, who also, he's got a lot of hats. He's our photographer, an award-winning photographer. He just won Photographer of the Year this yesterday in Texas.
Congratulations.
He went to Robb immediately. He was the only member of the media there for a long time. And you probably have seen some of his photographs of the kids being
They've been published all over the world.
Rescued from their fourth grade classroom. Those who were able to go out the windows did, and Pete took pictures of that. So he was there, and we regrouped in the newsroom and waited to get some kind of word from him. We were getting bits and pieces, you know, with the scanner. We knew now it was a school shooting. No idea how many children had been wounded or killed. When Pete came back, it was about 1:15, I think, 1:20, something like that. I said, Pete, what have we got? And he just said, boss, it's very bad. And we still didn't know how bad. Our reporter, Kimberly Matarrubio, was in our newsroom that day, and she left about 11:35, 11:40, and because two of her children were in the classrooms there, one in the fourth grade, one in the third grade. And so we were texting to her, Megan was texting to her and trying to learn what she was encountering there, and it was chaos, you know, just absolute chaos. And we didn't understand. I think Pete initially thought that the domestic disturbance person had simply run into the school to hide. But then as the kids began to be rescued and some started to come out with blood on them, and, you know, a little later it became obvious that it was a school shooting. We didn't hear a number until about 3 in the afternoon, 3:30, I think. Governor Abbott delivered a piece saying that there were 14 children who had died, and the teachers, and we know now that wasn't right, and it took until later that evening before we got, I think, an accurate number. And Megan and Melissa went to the Civic Center, which was the reunification point for the children and their parents. The buses were coming from Robb School with the children who were not wounded and dropping them off, and they were both there, and they saw Kimberly there, and she still didn't know what happened to Lexi. She couldn't find
Her daughter.
Her daughter Lexi, 10-year-old, in room 111, I'm sorry, and she couldn't find her. So Pete, during the time he was there, there's a funeral home, Hillcrest Memorial Funeral Home across the street from Robb. And that's where they were putting the children initially, the fourth graders who were evacuated from their classrooms. And parents were banging on the doors trying to get in that funeral home to see if their children were being harbored there. And they wouldn't let them in because that was what the police had told them to do. It was protocol. Pete managed to get in because Pete can get in anything. And he, at that point, he put down his camera and he said, I'm not working for the paper, I'm working for Kimberly, our dear friend. I'm gonna find Lexi. That's my main goal. And he didn't find her. And so that's kind of how the first day rolled. We were making calls all over. Julie Keeble, who was our crime and education writer at the time, not education, crime and county, and several other beats, she was making calls to law enforcement, trying to connect with somebody to get more accurate information, and obviously nobody was returning calls with us. I'll just have to fast forward a bit. There was a program conducted by law enforcement like last year, and they talked about how you how important it is for law enforcement to interface with media with accurate information as soon as possible. And the trainer said, the way you do that is early on you develop close relationships with the media. That way when they call you, you feel comfortable, telling them what you can. Well, we had beautiful relationships. Julie had every one of them on speed dial, and nobody talked.